I didn't do a end of year thing for myself. I didn't think of one, but fortunately, David Novak bailed me out because he tagged me. Thank you, David, in a tag called End of the Year Book Tag 2025, which is originated from Triumphal Reads, who says he combined a few different tags, ideas from a few different tags to do one of his own. So it's about 15 questions. I queued up some, if I can find the questions. Here I'm in a new B&B. Free, feel free to peruse the background while I'm trying to get my um, questions back. Having a lot of trouble with YouTube lately. How do you people do YouTube? How do you watch YouTube? I used to have the paid program where you get rid of the commercial free. It's like 120 a year or something like that. Very well worth it because I don't have it right now, and it's just driving me crazy how many commercials people have to put up with on this application. Not such a problem with a lot of BookTube because a lot of people are not monetized. Some of my favorite, and that's why I'm never going to monetize this channel because these commercials drive me nuts. And I don't mind paying extra to get rid of the commercials, but I think it ruins YouTube for a lot of people. Anyway, that's a little editorial to start at the end of the year. I am. This is a end of the year tag. I'm gonna try and focus on books I read in the first 10 or 12 months, or 10 of 12 months, I guess you could say, of the year, because um, there's so many books I haven't talked about in the last couple of months that I want to talk about. I don't want to repeat any content. So, question for books read in 2025. The first one is, what was the longest book you read? I think that was Legacy of Ashes, which is a book about the CIA. This is not going to work with this. I just realized I have to set up another screen someplace, and I'll be back to do that. I also want to apologize for all the people who tagged me last year, whose tags I didn't do. Um, Sometimes I lost track of them. A lot of times I just had nothing to say about them. One or two, I thought my my responses would just irritate people because I really wasn't down with the subject. But please continue to tag me if you want to. Uh, anyway, the longest book was probably this one. I didn't read very many long books this year, but and there's a reason for that. Which is weird because I wanted to read a lot of long books this year, but I kept focusing on short stuff because I wanted to make more content and I wanted to feel accomplishing things. But we'll get to that at the end in my regrets. But anyway, this is a great history of the CIA, especially great on the early days of the CIA, but a little weaker on more recent years. I felt like the author was pulling his punches a bit when it came, and not being as critical as he was in the early parts because he knew so many of the people he was interviewing are still alive and things like that. But he has even a more recent update, a sequel sort of that goes right into the 21st century. The shortest book, well, there's a few possibilities. This is the next option here, and the shortest book I read was probably, well, there's so many because I read so many short books. I don't know exactly what as the um, as since I read mostly ebooks and a few audiobooks. I listen to a few audiobooks. Most of them I can't really gauge the length that well. I'll say maybe. Well, in one way, Little Women was the shortest book because I only made it through 3 chapters. That's kind of snarky of me, but whatever. What can you do? I'm going to mention this book a few times, though, but it is one of the shorter books I read. Was Pal Joey by John O'Hara. So I'll go back to that. Oh my goodness, how many This is going to be really boring because I'm really out of practice. Lord of Shark. Okay, new favorite author. I will say for this one, this is a person I talked about a lot. I had a number of new favorite authors this year, but I read this book, A New Leaf, and I actually read another book by this guy, Jack Ritchie, from the 50s and 60s, who writes just, it's called A Master of Suspense here. Writes amazing crime short stories. It's really, I read two complete books by him. One was this one, another one was anthology of all his stories that appeared in Manhunt magazine, and there's not a bad story in the bunch. Now back to the questions. New favorite. So made you happy. Okay, this is a. This I almost I thought about maybe listing this as my longest book too, but probably what made me the happiest was the Aubrey and Maturin stories, which I read this year, almost all of them. I keep pausing to cough because it's hot here and it's just doing things in my throat. Um, and if I cough with my new mic, oh man, it's bad. Anyway, so these are wonderful stories. People, everybody loves them. Everybody who's read them loves them, I think. If you wonder if you're going to like them, watch the movie Master and Commander with Gladiator. Uh, I can remember everybody's name until I have to have to record, and then I can't remember anybody's names. But if you've seen that movie Master and Commander, or if you think you want to try the books, and you watch that movie and you love it, and you wish there were more, you're going to be very happy with the books. And even if you don't like the movie that much, it'll save you some time because um, it takes elements from different stories, but it is a wonderful series. It is Patrick O'Brien's. It represents the majority of his career. Once he started writing these, I don't think he wrote any other type of books. He wrote a couple of seafaring tales beforehand, and he was approached early on in his career, and he started these kind of late in life, but he lived for a long time, so he did finish 20 of them. They're amazing. The publisher approached him to create a series that would replace the Hornblower books after C.S. Forster died. Um, and I think these are even better. I'm going to read those C.S. Forster books again someday. Those uh, Hornblower books, because there's only a few of those. There's more of these Aubrey and Maturin books, but they're so good. They're the best historical fiction I've ever read. Some of the best bro books, guy books. Although I think women would like them too. They're not action books. I mean, they are. There's a lot of action, but not as much as say the Richard Sharp novels. They're character books of character, and they're incredibly well researched. And there's a lot of information about the natural world, nature, because one of the characters is a naturalist, and a lot about the politics of the time, a lot about sailing. So they're just so much fun. And reason I almost added them as the longest book because, well, I didn't read all of them this year. I'd read a couple of them before, but they really tell one long story. Sometimes it's almost like O'Brien will say, "Well, we're going to end this book now because it's 300 pages or whatever," and the next book picks up the next interesting incident. They really flow into each other very well, which is good because you won't want to stop reading them as you go through them. And the only bummer is 21, a book called 21, which is really just a few pages of a fragment of the book he was going to write that he was just started writing when he died, and I would skip that one. Uh, when you get to it, you're not going to skip it though, because you're going to want to read everything that he wrote. But there's really nothing. Nothing. It's a very early draft of partial notes of a couple of um, early chapters, and it doesn't go anywhere. And anyway, uh, this now I realize this table that I'm doing this on is wobbly in this new Airbnb. It's Christmas Eve, and I don't know when I'll post this, but anyway, so Patrick O'Brien made me happy. Not my new favorite author because like I said, I had read a couple of these, the first two before this year. Most depressing. I had a bunch of these. Okay, well, this is definitely depressing. I read a bunch of scandal books. This by Maureen Callahan, Ask Not the Kennedys and the Women They Destroyed. And boy, it goes through many women who are married to Kennedys or were involved with the Kennedys, um, mistresses of the Kennedys or rape victims of the Kennedys. It's just horrible to read all these stories, and most of them were not that new to me. But there's a lot of background in this, so it's a bummer of a book. And my laptop just died, so I got to restart it. Okay, I had to change the angle a bit. What I'm dealing with here is I've got my list of questions on my laptop, my list of reading on another tab on my laptop, and it crashed. And then I've got my new phone here for recording, and I've got my covers on my old phone. So it's a lot to manage for me, who has not made more than one video in 3 months. Anyway, what was the next question? And doesn't David Novak look awesome with the long hair? He does really look like a mad poet. And I want to congratulate him on them. I will not be jealous of my more follically endowed fellow senior booktubers, but if I could grow cool hair like that, I would. Number 6, the one you've thought about the most. This was a tough one to do. I'm ending up here doing a lot of these questions. Some of them I think lend more towards nonfiction, at least for me. And I want to do different books for each one. I don't want to do the same book over and over. This is a book, kind of along with that CIA book, Legacy of Ashes. I thought about this book a lot. Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, which was by David McGowan. He is a blogger. He read that famous book about Laurel Canyon, about the rock history of Laurel Canyon. Then he started noticing some strange things and playing off ideas with the audience of his blog, and he found a lot of weird coincidences, a lot of weird backgrounds for different people. Really doesn't come to a conclusion about what it all means. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. It's one of those books about that kind of touches on things like that Manson book that came out a couple of years ago. I'm going to have to learn how to not rock this table all the time I'm speaking. What was that Manson book? Just type Manson book. Had a one-word title. Anyway, these kind of CIA adjacent 60s books about that touch on what the CIA was doing with the MK Ultra program. I want to get more into that. And it's called Chaos: Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the '60s. And this Weird Secrets Inside the Canyon book really goes along with that. It covers a lot of the same era. I've got theories that I don't want to discuss because I'll sound like a lunatic, and they're probably lunatic theories. But there was something going on. We weren't told the truth about the '60s. I think we all know that now. There's a lot of stuff that might just be conjecture. There was a lot of anyway, MK Ultra. I'm obsessed about. I need to know a lot. I need to read a lot more before I can really go into anything. There was all those programs in the '60s, Operation Paperclip, where they brought the Nazis to work on the nuclear program and the space program, and Operation Mockingbird, where they influenced the press, and there's all the stuff they did with promoting artists, abstract art in the 50s and 60s, and promoting literature like Dr. Zhivago, which I've got to read one day too. But anyway, it could be a real rabbit hole. I don't want to turn this into that kind of channel, but it's all fascinating to me. And there's a lot going on there, and it's still coming out amazingly. And there's going to be an MK Ultra, which is the CIA's mind control program, where they would dose people with LSD and write down the results and stuff like that. They would, for example, they would make a house of prostitution. Yes, the CIA would do that, and they would. And the Johns would come in and they would dose them with LSD, and it's a perfect kind of situation to test drugs on random people who didn't know they were being dosed, because they're not going to go complain or anything because they were in a house of prostitution, and they were just normal people, or normal men doing that, so they're obviously going to say nothing to anybody. And a lot of this stuff was about 20% of the records of the MK Ultra program were preserved. The other 80% were destroyed. Google Church Commission, if you want. It's not all conjecture. There's a lot of evidence for it, but there's a bunch of other stuff too. So I think about that nutty stuff all the time. Nothing you can do about it. Anyway, so what is the next one? Try and remember to look at the camera once in a while. Okay, so that's what I thought about most, was weird happenings, weird, I can never remember that time, weird scenes inside the canyon. A favorite cover, that's a hard one for me, because since I mostly read online, I mean, on my phone, I really don't interact with the covers that much. These are pretty good, though. I haven't talked about these books yet, but I like old paperbacks and stuff, so I'll just show you that one. Let's say that's one of the best covers. I love old paperback covers with a painting of a character from the book and elements that combine to illustrate the story. Instead of just the wall of text we get now for the cover of a book, like in most modern books, these dumb abstract covers. Anyway. Okay, next one, most likely to reread. I have to double up here. I'm pretty sure the most likely thing I'll reread will be the Aubrey and Maturin books, because I can read them on a whole different level. I can read them slower and try and maybe understand more of the nautical stuff that's going on. The characters are just so wonderful to follow through their lives and follow through many years of their careers, starting off as in mid career, trying to really make their bones in the naval service, and trying to make money and establish themselves, and trying to get married, and sometimes marriages work out, sometimes they don't. You follow them for quite a long time. It's really a beautiful story. It's one of the great stories of male friendship ever written, and I know a lot of people are looking for things like that, because there aren't many pro male books being written anymore, or not much pro male content being focused on anymore. So that's really one for the dudes, but not for the dude bros necessarily, I don't think. Okay, so most likely rewritten, and Underdog. Well, Underdog and Overdog is kind of, since I didn't read really enough, I don't read any new books, but I could keep going on about the same 5 nonfiction books I read, because I got more of those up here too. Underdog books. I read so much old stuff, it's hard to say what's Underdog or not. I really don't see anything that's really this is then again, I don't know if it's an Underdog. I reread a bunch of the Richard Stark novels, the Parker novels. Those are great. Everybody should read those who likes hard-boiled fiction. Are they underdogs? I don't know. Is Bernard Cornwell an underdog with his new Sharp novel? I don't know. Don't really know any Underdog books, because I mostly read stuff, I guess, that's well known. Anyway, most surprising. Oh, I didn't pre-read that question, so I didn't pick up. I didn't think about this one beforehand. So I'm assuming surprising in a good way. Again, I'm not going to talk about the most recent books I've read. Probably okay. We'll go Robert Howard. I've talked about this book a lot. I don't think most people liked it as much as I did. I I, I think I talked to a couple of people when they're reading it, and they didn't like it that much. Which is the the Sailor Steve Costigan boxing stories by Robert E. Howard. I really love them, and I'm accidentally deleting stuff here. Oh my god! It was a side of Robert Howard I'd never seen before. I was aware of it. I knew he wrote stories that had more humor and more contemporary and stuff. But I really love seeing him right in this mode, and I think he did it very very well. I think it's actually one of the best things he did was his modern stories. I think are kind of underrated. So maybe that's an underdog. Was that underdog or most surprising? Well, let's combine them and say it was those together. Most frustrating. Well, there was plenty of those. Ugh. Um, I was frustrated by some stuff. Now, of course, I can't remember it. I had it in my mind a moment ago. Well, this book was odious. I don't know if I would call it frustrating. It was very disappointing. So maybe I'll do that in a minute. Uh, Oh, I'm going to skip back to reread again. This is what I wanted to say. So this is Born with the Dead by Robert Silverberg, which is a very powerful book. I read it. I enjoyed it very much. But even as I was finishing, I was reading. I have to give this another read. It's a very interesting concept about death in a time where resurrection, earthly resurrection, is happening, is able to happen, and the people who come back are not quite the same as they were before, and that impacts a lot. And it's a very deep book, and I don't think I got everything I can out of it, and I do want to read that again. I guess I could say Little Women again because I didn't really enjoy it, couldn't finish it, so that was frustrating that I couldn't force my way through it. I guess most overhyped. Okay, well, this book was overhyped for a while. I think it sank. Overhyped when it came out because they kind of released it the publisher released it without any advance warning because they didn't want to give Facebook a chance to try and suppress it. Um, Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams. You definitely have to use her name when you look for it because Careless People is from a quote from The Great Gatsby, and it's been used. Oh, I don't know, by about 45 other books. It's and it's This is a very overhyped and frustrating and annoying book because she is a good writer. I would say that she is a good writer in the sense that anybody who's adept at marketing, and she's a marketing person, a sales kind of person, is able to construct a story. I don't believe a word of it. I mean, uh, I believe some of it, but it's a tell all about her time at Facebook, which where Facebook failed to follow, take all her recommendations, which would have saved the company and would have prevented them from doing any crimes and everything. And it's just really, it's her voice and her personality that puts me off of the book. She doesn't seem like she's any better than the rest of them, and she takes no accountability for her part in it. And it's just a long book of hindsight is 2020 because she goes on and on about all the horrible things the company was doing and screwing her over, and yet she keeps volunteering for these ridiculous things like going to you know uh, just taking on these huge challenges when she's like 8.5 months pregnant, and then blaming her boss for anyway. And then she gets fired for for accusing someone of sexual harassment. Maybe that she's not sure why she's fired. I think they had just had enough of her. Rita, she's a very irritating person, and she worked with a lot of other irritating people. Um, and the book kind of sank after a couple months, and I don't know if that was the reason or not. But it was really hyped at the beginning, like this is going to blow the face off Facebook, and really she's just like, well, I had this plan for us to do this to commit crimes, but they didn't cover it up well enough, and now I'm calling them out for committing crimes. I know I'm not really giving it justice, but no one cares, and who cares about Facebook at this point anyway. So that was overhyped for a while. Most underhyped. Well, I didn't read any new books except Careless People. Aren't memoirs? Don't memoirs? This is probably an unpopular opinion. I could just do the sword thing. So many memoirs, so much nonfiction. Maybe this is why I don't like it as much as fiction. It seems fake to me. And we're all the time, every year, memoirs come out, and you find out the writer fudged a bunch of stuff, lied about a bunch of stuff, didn't tell the whole backstory. Like there's one about the hiking English people. Now it's coming out about Oliver Sacks. Apparently, made up all his a lot of stuff in his medical essays. You always hear that all the time, and like recently, I was watching some video. I won't link to it; it doesn't really matter. But some video about a rhetoric professor trying to encourage people to write nonfiction, and one of the things he said that students don't like to write nonfiction because they want to say, because they feel like they're, or personal nonfiction, I mean, because they feel like their life is boring. And he's like, no, your life's not boring. Just go dig down and you expose a bunch of your personal secrets and stuff. But I think it's what happens. A lot of books that are published as memoirs that are, the story seems so fascinating. Later, you find out it was just like A Million Little Pieces is the famous example, but there's many more where you find out everything was fudged. Like what's the Gonzo journalist Hunter Thompson. I mean, it's kind of your own fault with Hunter Thompson if you read those books and think they're literally true, but they are marketed as nonfiction, and they are read by a lot of young people who think that if a book's everything happened in a book, although some people think everything that happens in a novel is true too. It's kind of an assumption with a certain type of fiction, but so much of it's fake, and it's fake, and if a lot of these books were published as fiction, they wouldn't have been that interesting. They wouldn't have caught on, like that David Eggers book, The Circle, if he which is about a cult like Silicon Valley thing. Didn't really catch on with the public that well, but had he been a nobody writer who claimed all this stuff happened to him, to the character, he might have done better. So you get boring personal stories, and then jam full of lies to make them into interesting stories, and people buy them because they think they're true. So that's my rant on memoirs. And they dominate. They dominate the nonfiction world. The stupid memoirs, but right behind all the business actualization books, like the art of bullshit books and stuff like that. The memoirs always come to the right of, like Cheryl Strayed, or there's always one or two every couple of years about someone's personal journey, and and then later it turns out they didn't tell the whole story. I'm not sure about Cheryl Strayed's book about hiking the trail, but that might be true. But the others, okay. So underhyped. Well, I thought there was another book. I think, okay, kind of underhyped. I'd say not really, but The High Crusade by Poul Anderson is a respected book. It's a well-known science fiction book, science fiction slash fantasy book. Well, it's not really fantasy at all, but it could kind of be construed as, because it takes place in medieval times, and then it becomes an alternate history. And Really wonderful book, and I think a lot of people do like it. So I wish more people had read it. But The High Crusade by Poe Anderson from I think 51 or something like that. Fantastic book. Should be right at the top of everyone's science fiction list. I hope maybe somebody will read it for Rocket Summer this year and tell me what they think. Okay, number 15. Wish you had read in 2025. This is the last one. Thanks for bearing with me. There's a couple. One is Dream of Red Chamber, or various versions of that title that David Novak mentioned, but that wasn't what I had on my list for this year. But it is a book I really want to read. There's a couple. I didn't finish Villette, but I did start it. I'm about 25% through it. I might finish it by this year. So, in fact, I'm going to try and do that this holiday week. It's a very good book. The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. I really wanted to read that. I was planning to read it in November. I had it all planned out when I was going to do it, and I never even got close to reading it. I don't think I ever opened it even. But I'll try and read that. Like I said earlier, I think I did want to focus on more big books in 2025 and didn't end up doing it. And I don't have the same desire for 2026. I think I'm just going to keep on doing what mood reading and not really focus on anything in particular, although I'm trying to read all of Robert Howard by the end of the year, so by the end of 2026. So I still plan on doing that. That's it. Again, David, thanks for tagging me. This has gone on long enough, so I'll just cut it short here.